oh, he keeps talking about people wearing dresses. No, it's not.
That is a weird thing.
It's not like that. Look at it from a different way. Look at it. Show me one person that ever wore a dress in Hollywood unsuccessfully.
It might be too tall, might be too short, might be too dark, might be too light. They may decide they want to go Hispanic, or they want to go woman. Or you may remind the casting director of their brother-in-law.
Has this been difficult for you?
Yeah. Because when you watch someone who you know and love, go through.
Williams just revealed everything Malcolm Jamal Warner forewarned us about a few years ago. Interview 04440049. All of a sudden, Malcolm's enigmatic interviews and subliminal cautions don't appear.
Don't seem so harmless anymore.
I am tired of running for shade. And aren't you tired of being hustled and played? And aren't we all tired of crying about how hard it is to be
So innocuous now. Was there anything he wanted to convey to us about the people in the industry? Or worse, concerning something far more significant? Let's begin. For many years, Katt Williams has been yelling into thin air about what happens to a black man in Hollywood who achieves a certain level of success and, more crucially, consciousness. Frequently written off as angry tirades or sour outbursts, his interviews were actually coded warnings regarding the price of being black in a field designed to take advantage of you, followed by silence the instant you don't comply. Williams pointed out that he has seen other performers encounter the same obstacle again during their careers. Williams's finding raises the possibility that the black icons have been the covert target of someone in a position of authority who wants to damage their reputation. Williams' disclosures also revealed the existence of the Illuminati, a covert organization that is fiercely opposed by black people. By disclosing the name of the taboo group and its prominent members,
I've never seen Medea in a pantsuit. I think she wears dresses. So now I'm saying, why are we picking on poor little Kevin Hart? Because it was his...
The Guardian seems to have also subtly supported his allegation. It is the world's most prestigious club. The tiny global elite of billionaire benefactors is known as the Good Club. Among the members are well-known individuals: Ted Turner, Oprah Winfrey, David Rockefeller, Warren Buffett, George Soros, and Bill Gates. However, there are also others, such as the equally rich but lesser-known business moguls Eli and Eddie Broad. Williams cautions other black artists to be wary of the club's clutches, despite disclosing the main elements of the agenda that purportedly came from the elites. 18, although that may sound a little dramatic, the pimp maintains that his target audience should heed his counsel because he is the one with the most knowledge, having reportedly been the victim of the aforementioned sting for years. I didn't understand that they had to sting me 1,000,000 times. I'm still not going to join, but I respected them. Katt claimed that
necessary for us to stir up that hornet's nest unless we intend to get stung a minute.
that he wasn't the only person going through difficulties. Therefore, for his own sake, he had to let it go. 6. Williams claimed that after much suffering, he finally realized how harshly his outspoken nature, together with his ruthless honesty and venting of frustrations, had caused him to face harsh criticism. It has undoubtedly expanded his horizons, even though he didn't expect the degree of animosity aimed at him. He has now at last realized how his careless behavior is controlled and turned.
So I know how much they talked about Martin Luther King, and I know what they end up doing to him. I know this same story about Jesus.
Turned against him. Additionally, the elusive Illuminati benefits greatly from this circumstance. Doesn't mean I always make the right decisions, but I am going to stand by what I stand for. Not to mention how Daredevil Katt came clean about knowing the truth about Bernie Mac, and how he didn't hesitate to spill the beans on the reputedly best-kept secret in the industry. 6. Katt's discovery about his previous idol may surprise you. However, the subsequent one is significantly more damaging. The Oscar-shocking slap, which was purportedly faked, deceived the entire globe, Katt revealed. Because of his background in manufacturing, many people find Katt's perspective to be credible. 9 now, a lot of you may have thought that Will truly lost it in front of the camera. However, Will has clearly been a major player in the sector for many years, so it is quite strange that he would make such a mistake. Interview 544, Part 551. Katt Williams revealed the covert
I know that the people that made money off Bernie Mac didn't like him.
impact of wealthy elites sustaining damaging stereotypes. exposing Hollywood's plan to denigrate Black men. The necessity of genuine representation and integrity in the profession was further emphasized by Terrence Howard's observations and Denzel Washington's unwillingness to take on racist parts. The quest for powerful tales that can shield Black talent from such crimes is fueled by
The industry is canceling one Black guy. I know what happens when they are going to elevate another, and I know what happens when they don't care about either.
Now, many of you might
their revelations. Fans are now discovering that Malcolm Jamal Warner, one of the quietest voices, has been attempting to convey the same message all along, thanks to this recently discovered video. Really, it's
300 corporations that are a part of the Will Smith business operation. That is the $20 million
unsettling. Malcolm was the safe Black actor in the business for a long time. He avoided the press, grew up on America's favorite family sitcom, and exuded a cool elegance that rendered him nearly imperceptible to scandal. However, it is the issue. He didn't exist. And you could see that knowledge setting in throughout his latter years. He began talking more candidly about systems, who gets to tell tales, who gets erased, and what it truly means to be a Black man navigating the Hollywood system, not just about acting or art. Malcolm Jamal Warner gave what many now consider to be a covert farewell in the last episode of his podcast, Not All Hood, which was published just 2 days prior to his passing. He wasn't lighthearted, he was honest, and forthright when he opened up. He discussed a recent discussion he had with Tama Georgia Mee Harper, a spoken word artist. She immediately said, "Ain't nothing wrong with the hood," in response to him mentioning the title of his program. Warner paused to consider that one remark. He came to see how the media frequently just portrays the hood story, ignoring the richness, beauty, and complexity of Black culture from the hood. He was criticizing the system that misunderstands and takes advantage of it. According to him, the hood side is ultimately responsible for the creation of American culture throughout history. Not simply a cultural remark either. Regarding appropriation, invisibility, and stolen legacy, that is a bold reality. Hollywood has worked for decades to hide this fact. In retrospect, a phrase from one of his final interviews seems like a warning that we ought to have heeded more carefully. Black survival in America. That's Black excellence. It was more than just a strong declaration. The reality was bitter. Because the true issue is not success, but survival. Malcolm was being straightforward. It's not about accolades, red carpets, or ostentatious chances. It's about surviving mentally, emotionally.
The reason for the title is combating the narrative of Black life, Black culture that the media
and even physically, after living your entire life within a system that benefits from your survive. When he delivered that line, it struck a deep chord, and it pierces considerably more now that he passed away unexpectedly. Malcolm Jamal Warner seems to have sensed the time was running out and decided to use his parting message to draw attention to the truth. That achievement and status have never been the only aspects of Black existence in America. It has been about living a strong, dignified, and purposeful life. And he was gone within 48 hours of sharing that vulnerable moment. Malcolm Jamal Warner was Theo Huxtable, the charming, silly, and grounded son on The Cosby Show, to a whole generation. He appeared on television screens week after week as the likable teenager trying to make sense of life with the assistance of his idealized parents. Theo was more than simply a fictional character to many. He belonged to the family. Warner carried that reputation into adulthood. Likable, reliable, and secure. Beneath that polished exterior, however,
We're not all hood. The Black community is not a monolith. There's so many levels and lanes to the Black community, and we wanted to have a space where we could acknowledge.
however, was a man molded by far more profound events. Additionally, you won't find any ugly controversies or self-inflicted scandals. You will discover a tale of silent power. Warner handled everything with dignity and self-respect, from dealing with personal tragedy to bearing the burden of a program marred by Bill Cosby's transgressions. Warner changed where others could have deteriorated. Unlike many other child stars, he did not crash. He stayed grounded, reflected, and created. Through it all, he developed into a guy who transformed quiet into truth and suffering into purpose, becoming something much more potent than a comedic star. 21, Malcolm Jamal Warner didn't do anything that caused the most significant and difficult scandal in his career. His tight relationship with Bill Cosby was the reason it occurred. Warner's response demonstrated how difficult the circumstances were. He was forced to choose between enduring the emotions associated with a show that held great personal significance, submitting to public pressure, and being faithful to someone who had aided him. You must know how close he was to Cosby in order to comprehend his response. Cosby impacted Warner's life in addition to working with him. After looking all throughout the nation, he chose Warner, 13, to play Theo. Cosby established the standard on the set. Warner claimed that despite becoming a tremendous success, Cosby maintained his humility, which inspired him to do the same. In order to prevent the show from being dated in the future, Cosby also gave him wise counsel, such as refraining from employing cocky jargon. Warner stated years later that the advice was correct. The show was still new when he and his daughter watched it. Their relationship was a combination of father figure and mentor.
It's difficult not to, not to feel something, have some kind of emotional response to,
which made Warner's handling of the incident even more difficult. Gained notoriety after more than 50 women came forward to accuse Cosby of sexual assault. His reaction was thoughtful and sentimental, not a straightforward defense. In an interview from 2015, he stated, "He's one of my mentors. Just as it's painful to hear any woman talk about assault, whether true or not, it's just as painful to watch my friend and mentor go through this." He was split between wanting to honor the victims and acknowledging how difficult it was to see someone he looked up to fail, as that one comment demonstrates. He didn't stand up for Cosby, but he also didn't ignore him. "I can't defend him, but I won't throw him under the bus either," he said. The media's handling of the subject was also attacked by Warner, who called it a circus and noted that not all of the claims were the same. He was merely requesting a more deliberate discussion, not an attempt to justify Cosby. The tightrope walk was painful and challenging, demonstrating the emotional weight of this chapter for him. The harm done to the Cosby Show's reputation was a significant factor in Malcolm Jamal Warner's suffering throughout the Cosby scandal. In addition,
my biggest feeling is I feel sad for, just the way this whole
to the personal charges. He frequently said that having the show taken out of syndication was the thing that affected him the most. The Cosby Show was more than simply a job to Warner. It was a turning point in American culture that changed the country's perception of Black families for the better. "The Cosby Show has always been there to withstand that," he stated. "And the thing that hurts me the most is that we no longer have it. The Huxtables will just be a fairy tale in a few generations." He was also forthright about how the cancellation of the show affected him emotionally. He brought attention to the unfair disparity between the complete erasure of The Cosby Show and the continued screening of films by directors such as Woody Allen and Roman Polanski. He said, "It's literally taking money out of my pocket," acknowledging that the financial impact was significant. His annoyance was therefore partly cultural and representational, but it was also partly pragmatic, demonstrating how the consequences impacted both his beliefs and his means of subsistence. Interview 1504, 1459 A's. Time went on, Malcolm Jamal Warner's opinions toward the Bill Cosby scandal evolved. He first acknowledged that The Cosby Show's reputation had been damaged. However, he gained fresh insight after speaking with his former co-star Keshia Knight Pulliam, who portrayed Rudy. She reminded him of the positive impact the show had on individuals, particularly young Black viewers, encouraging them to pursue higher education and have more ambitious goals. That message resonated. It was a turning point for Warner, who subsequently remarked, "Her saying that really shifted my perspective." He started to consider what the show had already achieved, rather than what was broken. Even if the man behind it had fallen, he began to think that its impact and positive message may still be significant. This change demonstrated Warner's emotional development. He transitioned from despair and annoyance to introspection and fortitude. It was an authentic human reaction to a profoundly upsetting event in both his personal and professional life.
And representation. Part of it was practical too, showing that the fallout affected both his beliefs and his livelihood.
After having had such a long path and long journey, you have something like this that you've got to consider.
Malcolm Jamal Warner's stability throughout his childhood is among his most unexpected qualities, particularly considering that he was raised in the public eye. Warner discreetly chose a different route, although many child stars ultimately struggled in public. It wasn't a stroke of luck. It was the outcome of self-control, wise choices, and a strong sense of self. Warner made a concerted effort to distance himself from his position as Theo Huxtable from his youth when The Cosby Show concluded. He even objected to being called Theo at one time, not because he was resentful, but rather because he wanted to establish that he was more than that one figure. He expanded, becoming a talented musician and spoken word artist, directing shows like Kenan and Kel, and even taking home a Grammy for Best Traditional R&B Performance. Additionally, he was nominated for a Grammy for Best Spoken Word Poetry Album. Warner didn't play it safe as an actor. From dramas like The Resident, Suits, and major crimes to the sitcom Malcolm and Eddie, he played a wide range of characters. He also made an appearance in the critically acclaimed American crime story, The People vs. O.J. Simpson. His career demonstrates that perseverance and hard effort can be rewarded. Malcolm Jamal Warner survived being a kid celebrity, but he did more than that. He subtly demonstrated that he was always superior to Theo, because they had had enough of me arguing with the writers. Malcolm Jamal Warner's tale is noteworthy not only for his accomplishments, but also for his failures. Warner avoided media controversies, addiction, and legal issues, unlike many child stars of his generation. He gives his mother, Pamela, a lot of credit for overseeing his work and instilling discipline in him at a young age. Warner continued to spread uplifting ideas as early as the 1980s. He advised young followers to avoid drugs and make wise decisions in his 1988 book, Theo and Me, Growing Up. Okay. That book was about being responsible, not for fame. Warner's avoidance of scandals is no coincidence. He was aware of the mistakes made by others and took care to avoid making the same mistakes himself. His work grew, aged with him. His work on The Cosby Show was strongly related to his early book. Later on, though, he embarked on more significant endeavors. Real-life topics like racism, mass incarceration, and immigration were addressed in his 2017 short film, You Can't Hear Me, and his Grammy-nominated spoken word album, Hiding in Plain View. These weren't merely artistic endeavors. They were the result of genuine awareness, which his father fostered in him by forcing him to study Black luminaries like Langston Hughes throughout his early years. Warner didn't get lucky on his journey from child celebrity to serious artist. It's what happens when someone chooses to develop in their own way, regardless of what fame demands, and when talent is directed by purpose. In addition to the stress of being associated with the Cosby affair, Warner experienced private heartbreaks that influenced his perspective on life and love. Early in adulthood, he had one of the most agonizing losses, Michelle Thomas's passing. She played Justine, Theo's love interest on The Cosby Show, and was his ex-girlfriend and co-star. They remained close even after their 1994 breakup. Thomas received a diagnosis of a rare and deadly kind of stomach cancer in 1997. Warner is said to have been by her side when she passed away in December 1998 at the age of barely 30. He didn't talk about it publicly, but it was a profound loss that obviously affected him. His serene, somber, and contemplative attitude on life was probably influenced by such kind of suffering. And hasn't Katt Williams been yelling about it the entire time? That the entertainment industry turns against Black performers the moment they begin to pull back the curtain and break the rules, calls them nuts, causes them to vanish. You can only go so far before they remind you whose game this is, Katt has stated in interviews for years. It wasn't paranoid. There was a pattern Malcolm, too, had begun to notice. Then he was gone, without warning, no media frenzy, no significant homage. Hollywood didn't stop to pay tribute to a man who had contributed to the history of television. Nothing but quiet. The sort of quiet that seems deliberate. It seems as though his passing was purposefully forgotten rather than simply disregarded. Swiftly swept under the rug, leaving almost any time for inquiries, because it's obvious that someone didn't want us to listen once you start making the connections between Malcolm's last remarks and Katt's warnings. Now that Katt's recently released tape has surfaced, people are at last taking notice. This goes beyond Hollywood drama and rumors. This concerns a whole system that exploits Black men for narrative, talent, and image, but that becomes antagonistic the instant those guys cease keeping quiet. The loud one has always been Katt, the rebel, the man they were powerless over. Malcolm, though, they didn't anticipate that he would push back. And when he did, it was subtly effective. Here we are, reflecting on the speeches, interviews, and seemingly harmless moments that now sound like confessions. Malcolm didn't intend to make a big impression. His intention was to leave breadcrumbs, and the whole loaf was dropped by Katt. Why are we only now paying attention, is the question. Worse yet, who else attempted to alert us before it was too late? Folks, that's it for today. Till the next occasion, farewell.